podcast, Graphing with Excel. Physical Science, Fowlerville High School, prepared by Mrs. Gray. In this podcast, we will be learning how to graph using Microsoft Excel. Yesterday, we started graphing by hand, and we had to follow these standards. And these are the standards that we want to accomplish also using Microsoft Excel. So we're going to collect data and make graphs. We must include a title, which will be the y-axis versus the x-axis. On the x-axis, we will include the independent variable, and on the y-axis, we will include the dependent variable. We must also label our units, and we'll put those in parentheses next to each axis label. Points must be plotted correctly and a trend line accurately drawn. So here in Microsoft Excel, I have already put my data into the spreadsheet. And so as you can see, I included labels for each column as well as the data and the units, seconds for time, and meters for distance. One thing that's helpful when you're putting your data in is to always put your independent variable in the first column and your dependent variable in the second column. So that's what I have done. To start, you're going to highlight the data that you'll be using. You're going to go to Insert. You're going to insert a scatter plot, and it's going to be the one that has no lines drawn. Okay, so here you can see that there are some things that are not quite complete yet. We need to make changes. First, our title is not accurate. There are no labels on either of our axes, and we have this thing over here that just says distance in meters, okay? That's a legend. We're actually not going to use that. But to start with, we're going to change the chart type so that we can include the labels on the side. So if you go up here, and you can see here, you can kind of see the gray up here for our title as well as two axis labels. So we're going to click on that. And then we're going to delete the legend. Okay? Then we're going to label our axis. And so if you're not sure what the axis label title should be, if you look at what data is down here, so we have 5, 10, 15, 20, that's going to be our time. So we're going to put here in here time, and in parentheses seconds, because that is the unit. Then over here, we will use the other label. So that will be distance, labeled with meters. Okay, then at the top, we need to include the title, which we said was the y-axis, distance, versus time. Okay? So we have the title, we have the independent variable on the x-axis, we have the dependent variable on the y-axis, we have labeled our units in parentheses, and our axes are numbered accurately. Next we have the points plotted. So the last thing we need to do is add a trend line. So to add a trend line, you're going to right click on one of the points. And then you'll go down here to add trend line. All right, so for this, there are multiple choices that you can make in regards to what type of trend line you're adding. So in this case, it's a relatively linear data, so we would choose linear. But if you were working with something that is very random, you might use a moving average. If it's something that's exponential, so it starts to increase and then it goes up very fast, that would be exponential. And so then there are also other choices. So you would want to find the one that matches your data best. We have a linear in this case, so we're going to use linear. Okay. Here we can make our graph slightly bigger. And there are other things that you can do if you want to play around a little bit. So you can change the color of your points. Okay. If you accidentally put your columns wrong, so if you had the independent accidentally on the y-axis and the dependent on the x-axis, then you could hit this, which would switch the row and the column. So that's an easy fix. You can change the chart type. We don't need to change our chart type, but there are many different chart types that we can use, but for our class, we'll stick with the scatter plot. Okay, so that completes this podcast. Thank you.